of the 16th of April. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to this hybrid meeting of the Cross-Cutting Resources and Business Overall Scrutiny Committee, which is open to the press and public. Sorry, I'm reading this off a mobile phone. It's the only way I found to do this. This meeting is to be viewed live by members of the press and public today. Therefore, I may welcome anybody that be watching remotely. Please can members refrain from using the chat bar function, instead use the raised hand icon to indicate whether you want to speak. May I remind members that as per statutory guidance under Section 4 of the Local Government Wales Hybrid Measure 2011 and our formally adopted hybrid meeting, any member attending the meeting remotely must be able to be seen and heard by the members and officers who are attending the meeting, as well as by members of the public viewing this. So can I ask you that you all please use your cameras for the duration of this meeting. Please remember also to keep your microphone muted when you're not talking. Also, it's not on. Also, we obviously not conducting this in meeting Welsh, as we have not formally been asked to do that. Number one, apologies. Noel, do we have any apologies for this afternoon's meeting? I believe it's Niall on that.
Yeah, afternoon, Chair. We've had apologies from councillors Carl Gordon and Liam Cowles.
Anybody else? Anybody else they want to report? Silence, so I'm assuming that everybody we've got on here at the moment is the people that are going to act. Hello? Pardon?
Ron Burnett.
Oh, Ron Burnett. Thank you there,
Councillor
Janet.
Burnett.
Yeah, Janet, I got you. Thank you. Right, so that's the other person. Right, decorations of interest. Rebecca, can you please take us through the decorations of interest, if there are any?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm not anticipating that there are any declarations of interest, but if members do think of anything, either now or during discussions, then please raise them verbally for us to know. Thank you. Right,
thank you very much indeed. Right, the next thing on your agenda, which is pages 3 to 16, I'm pretty certain you've read them. I certainly have from the last meeting, was confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of the 31st of the 1st, 24, which, if you remember rightly, having read them, would be the budget and the council's strategy document. So confirmation of those minutes. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? And then any matters arising.
I move those, Chair. I move, Chair. I second, Chair.
Everybody in agreement? Yeah. Anybody against? And anybody abstaining? Thank you very much. Glad to hear that. That was an interesting meeting. And then action sheet. Let's get the action sheet up. As it is, I don't think there's nothing on that. Is there, Rebecca?
No, Chair. It was just the responses to the recommendations from the last committee, which members have received. Now, thank you. Right. So we go on to the meat of the matter, which is workforce. Today's cross-cutting. I'm sure you've all given this a good read. Which is workforce-related data and trends. And the report was written and submitted by Jason Lewis and Tina Hume. I'll see what it says on my script here. There we are. Let me get on to this bit. The report provides an overview of some of the key workforce trends and actions incorporated within the Workforce Strategy 23-28, and our plan to have been delivered and intended to have a positive impact on these trends. Can I firstly welcome all the officers and the executive member for resources to the meeting. That is Sue Morgan and Jason Lewis and Tina Hume to introduce the report. So over to you, Sue, wherever you are. I assume in the chambers, I think she said to me earlier.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thanks very much for inviting me here to take part in this scrutiny session. I'm just saying a truism, but I genuinely believe this, and I know other members do too, that our staff are our most important resource, that their success, their deployment, their well-being are all absolutely crucial to our effectiveness as a council, and also, of course, in terms of the resources that we expend as a council, they are a key element of that resource. The majority of the resource that the council has available does go into staff, and that's quite right, but it means that reviewing the way that we deploy staff is even more important, both for efficiency as well as effectiveness. So the strategy document, the workforce strategy, is an absolutely vital tool for this council, and I welcome the scrutiny that this committee is giving to the issue, and I know you've particularly asked for updates in relation to workforce data and trends today. I would just put the caveat that all of the figures that we're looking at need to be taken in the setting of post-COVID. Those trends have been skewed and affected by COVID, so where you might see sort of shifts or unexpected shifts, they can often be explained in that way. I think the data also reveals an important issue for me, which is the importance of attracting and recruiting young people in particular, and those with a very strong sense of commitment to this area. That question of being proud to work for Torfaen is an integral part of our culture, and a really, really important, unique selling point for this authority is that sense of commitment to and pride in serving your own community. I would also just caveat the issue around the throughput of staff in and out of the organisation. Healthy organisations will have a healthy throughput because it's important that good people are developed, and good people are developed, they move on, new good people come in. That freshness in an organisation is a really healthy sign, and I'm glad to see that this kind of analysis and discussion will take place today in that context. So thank you very much to the officers for the work that they've done in presenting this, and over to them.
Okay, so it's, have we got, I think we was going first on this, so it's Jason and then Tina. Okay, thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Morgan, for introducing it. I won't dwell on the report. It's merely an introductory report. I have a presentation you can hopefully all see on your screen, and you've all had circulated an opportunity to have a quick look at. It presents to you some of the key workforce data sets and trends that we as a leadership team scrutinise on a regular basis. The way we try to structure the presentation today is to look at each trend or data set and just let you know what we're doing in response to some of the less positive trends that we're experiencing as an organisation, a lot of which are set out within the workforce strategy, but we've extracted some of those activities just to illustrate the challenge for you. So the first one just to present to you is the overall numbers, and on the top of this screen in the chart, in the table, you'll see that the total number of people that we employ across the authority, both in terms of the council itself and schools, is 4,024 people. And that equates to 3,489 full-time equivalent posts. Now, just to give a bit of context to that, we've looked at the history of the organisation, and we've had a look at our data back to 2010. And in 2010, we were employing 4,900 staff. So we've seen a reduction over the last 15 years of about 900 staff in total. There was a particular dip within 2015, and that was attributed to the creation of the Torfaen Leisure Trust and the staff transferring out of the organisation at the time. And we were slap bang in the middle of austerity at that time, and I believe it was before my time. I believe it was there was also a voluntary redundancy trawl that took place, and a fair number of staff left the organisation on that basis. So, as you can see, we have contracted quite considerably over that period of time. And what sometimes isn't understood is that whilst the management of school-based staff rests with the governors and the leadership teams within the schools, technically all school-based staff, teachers included, are employees of Torfaen Council. So it's important that we recognise that in the information that we present to you. And they're obviously included as a fairly sizable cohort, as you can see within that table and within the chart below.
Is that you finished there, Jason?
My screen isn't moving forward. You have to bear with me.
I see, yeah.
I'll come out of it. You can all see that, I'm assuming, anyway.
Yeah.
It just wasn't working as a slideshow. So the next set of data is an analysis of gender pay. It's an important one for us. We need to make sure that our organisation is as bias-free as it possibly can be. And this is one that we look at regularly to make sure that our pay and grading structures are bias-free. The first table shows you an analysis of both the numbers of staff that we employ within each of the grades, both presented as male and female staff, and also then a little more technically along the top there, the percentage, what we call the pay gap. So it's looking at what men and women are paid within each of those grading categories. So you can see the numbers. You can see that we employ a lot more women than we do men. That's not untypical of a local authority. But then on the right-hand side, you can see that whilst there are very, very small fluctuations in terms of pay gap both ways, with women earning fractionally more than men and vice versa in each of those categories, that is typically as to where people are within a grade. You'd appreciate within each of those grades there are a number of pay scales, pay points. So that gives us reassurance that our grading structure is free of bias. The bottom table presents a pay on a gender basis for senior leaders. Now, bear in mind I did mention that school teaching staff are also employees of Torfaen Council. We feel it when we present this information because it is something that is important. And we often get lots of questions about senior leadership within the organisation and the gender makeup of that, is that we present that as a whole organisation. And you can see that, that breakdown within the bottom table, from the Chief Executive at grade 19 all the way down to grade 11. You will notice in grade 19 that there are two positions that are attracting the highest scale. One of them is the Chief Executive, and inevitably one of those would be one of our head teachers. The next data set is about the age of our employees, and on average, we are fairly elderly as an organisation. You'll notice that our average age across the organisation is 44. I think the highest average age sits within adults and communities. I think it's about 47. You'll notice within that table at the bottom, we've got 83 staff that are 66 and over, which is a fair number of people who we can expect to be retiring or retiring in the very near future. But also we've got very few people who are employed under 25. And as I said, that's not untypical of local government organisations. In the past, we used to have a fair number of youngsters joining us through youth training schemes, for example. And over the years, those opportunities have dried up somewhat. And it's important we turn the tap back on for young people and make sure that we provide opportunities for more young people to join us and work with us, particularly those who are within our communities. we are the largest employer in Torfaen, and it's important that we offer those employment opportunities to our community. In terms of positive action that we've taken, all junior posts within the council are now assumed to be converted into apprenticeship opportunities. So those posts at the lower end of the scale, we expect that services will comply with that expectation, so that we're able to offer more apprentice opportunities than we do at the moment. So in terms of some of the positive things that we're doing, we've launched an apprenticeship and a traineeship scheme. And we're also developing career pathways within the organisations that allow a progression through the organisation in different disciplines for young people. We're working more closely with schools at careers events, and that's an ongoing piece of work that we're doing. We're investing heavily in that area, and also providing school children with opportunities to come and experience working for the council. We're also engaging with Looked After Children, the team that support Looked After Children, and providing them with work experience within the council, and also with the employability teams providing supported employment opportunities. We've introducing changes to our recruitment processes. Historically, we have put expectations around experience and qualifications on roles, even at the lowest level within the organisation. We're realising that acts as barriers for young people joining us. So we are encouraging services to look closely at what expectations they have for new starters and describe those roles appropriately. Tina will, at a later point, talk to you about some of the positive changes we're making to our recruitment process as well. And another one is about making sure that we're able to identify talent within the organisation at the earliest opportunity and support that talent to progress through the organisation. It's something that we've shied away from. Perhaps we haven't been bold enough to identify talent individually within the organisation. I think it's important that we do so, and we wrap that support around them to allow them to develop within the organisation. The next chart is about sickness absence in the organisation. The first chart, the largest chart there, or table, presents the figures for last year, 2023. And it shows that in total, the data is presented on a number of days per person basis. That's the typical measure of sickness absence within local government. It's different to some other organisations who produce data stats in terms of percentage absence. But this is the one that we've used for donkey's years within local government, and it's the one that all local authorities use. So that's presenting in the average number of days lost per person within the organisation. So in 2023, the total average figure was 12.91 days per person. You'll see along the right-hand side in the smaller table, that presents the outturned figures since 2015. So there were fluctuations during that year. We were typically around the 10 to 11 days mark. It dropped off in 2021. That was obviously as a result of COVID, with most of the workforce working from home. And then we've had a couple of years where it has peaked above the norm. In terms of the trend across the country, you'll see that for the 2023 period, Torfaen was in the bottom quartile, so not a result that we're particularly proud of. And you can see that absence ranges from Anglesey at the top at 9.15 days to Blaenau Gwent at 15.45. And 7 councils, for whatever reason, didn't declare their information to the WRGA. I think, in terms of a trend, I think we've seen sickness absence generally rise over the years, whereas the good performing organisations in the past, going back 10 years, would expect to see 8 days as a typical average. I think everybody's experienced a shift upwards in terms of absence. So these are the sickness figures up until the Q4 this year. We introduced an improvement target, and that was at 10.6 days. We missed that target slightly, I would say, by 0.5, and our outturn was 11.1 days on average per person. So it's pleasing in some ways that this has been a significant improvement since last year, and there's a lot of work gone into that. And I suppose if all the figures across Wales remain static from last year, we would be in the top quartile with this type of figure. Nevertheless, there's definitely room for improvement. One trend that's been prevalent for the last 5 or 6 years is the increase in mental health-related absence, to the point that it is the most prominent reason for absence within the authority. Again, not typical of Torfaen. It's experienced across the sector. And you will see that 28% of absence, recorded absence, was as a result of poor mental health. That has actually reduced over the last couple of years. Prior to the pandemic, we were in the region of 34%. And the 5 years prior to that, we saw a marked increase in mental health-related absence from the early 20% up to 34%. So there has been improvement. I hope it's as a result of some of the interventions that we've introduced and some of the support mechanisms. And I hope it will continue to reduce as a result of that. So in terms of what we've done, we've reviewed our policy and agreed those changes with the trade unions. It's largely about tightening up some of our management arrangements, giving staff the confidence to talk about illness, including mental health-related illness in the workplace, so that managers can support their staff whilst they're absent and when they return to work. We've introduced new monitoring processes with regular reports into leadership teams, as well as our corporate leadership team. We've improved the time it takes to get an occupational health appointment, so we expect appointments to be delivered within 10 days of referral. We've produced guides from managers on key areas of sickness management, and we are actively providing support into the services with our HR advisors working alongside the managers to support them in managing sickness absence. And that's targeted to some of the higher areas of absence within the organisation. We've introduced new recording processes to manage cases. So there's an active monitoring process that's been introduced. So there's regular dialogue between HR advisors and managers on cases within their particular areas. We've done some health surveillance work as well through our occupational health service, and then our HR staff have been trained on managing and promoting positive mental health, and they're supporting managers in doing that. So in terms of additional things that we are going to do, we're going to introduce some guidance and support for talking about wellbeing matters as part of one-to-one meetings between managers and employees. And we'll roll out a wellbeing assessment toolkit to support that activity. We'll provide managers with training on how to support wellbeing. And then it's about reinforcing expectations with staff when they're not in work due to sickness absence, that there are some responsibilities that they need to take on board. We need to ensure that managers are aware of support that is available to them to enable staff to return to work in a timely way, and give managers the confidence and support to have those difficult conversations. And the final slide is about recruitment and retention, and it's more about volumes really, rather than any particular notable trend. It's just to illustrate the work that the recruitment team have within the organisation. The first one is the turnover rate and attritional rate. The figure for 2023 is pretty typical. 16.1% is not unusual. It's what we would typically expect year on year. Prior to that, there was a 13.8%, and when you're talking about, we're talking about fairly modest numbers within a very large organisation here. What I guess is noticeable again in 2021 was a low figure of 11.3, and that's particularly low, and that can be largely attributable to people not moving around, moving jobs in the pandemic. And in terms of the other two bullet points, they're volume related. So in the last 12 months, we've advertised 885 jobs, and that's on average 17 a week. And we've also received 1,848 application forms through that period. We've got a significant piece of work that's just been introduced in terms of recruitment and the way that we approach recruitment. And I think I'll ask Tina just to talk you through what that is. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So what we've been looking at is our customer journey in terms of recruitment. So at the moment, our process is that you manually fill in either an electronic or a paper form and it gets sent in. So we've looked at that in terms of an efficiency process and also in terms of what are people looking for when they're coming to look for an organisation of our size. So we've done some customer journey, and so we've worked with young people, we've worked with people in the organisation, and we've introduced a fully bilingual process to actually apply online now for roles. So if you already work for the council, you can log into the Employee Services portal and you can apply for a job that way. If you're working externally, you can actually then look at the jobs online, you can apply online, and there's support there through our employability teams and through our recruitment side. And we're trying to link that to our digitally enabled communities to enable them to have email addresses and to support them to get in online. So we've got those processes in place. The other thing that we're really pleased with is it's fully bilingual. So we've had an ambition for a long time to support that ability to be able to apply in Welsh. And the website, you will either go through into an English or a Welsh version, and that's the preference when you log in. So that's the first start of the process. That will be the electronic application forms. Managers will be able to have them in real time, and they'll be able to manage their shortlisting online and send out invitations for interview. The next part of the process will be an onboarding process. So when the individual then has to go through employment checks, and they have to do inductions, and they have to do their training, things like safeguarding, there'll be a portal which they can do that online, and they can do that before they start. So that's the second phase of the recruitment project.
Okay, thank you, Chair. That's the presentation. Happy to answer any questions that members have.
I think we... are you getting me okay? I've got my headphone on. Are you getting me okay? Yeah, just to make sure. I think we need obviously to start the scrutiny process. What I intend to do is take us back through your slides, which were very useful, and ask the questions on the slides. Is that, and then we go into the strategy. Is that what you were expecting?
Yes, Chair. I think if we concentrate the scrutiny around the slides, obviously the workforce strategy is a far broader document with 50 plus priorities. I've extracted what I think are the pertinent ones associated with these trends and data sets.
I think it's just making sense of this. You're right with that, Rebecca and Goran, aren't you? They're just checking.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, it's just making meaningful scrutiny for us. So what I'll do is go back to the slides are really useful. It gives us something to focus on. Members are okay with that, are they, as a way of going? Have we got any other officers on this as well, Jason? Just to make sure that I'm not forgetting anybody.
Jason O'Brien and Nigel Aurelius are here. Dave Leach has sent his apologies, Chair.
Could they all introduce themselves, say hello? You introduced them anyway. It's just a case of knowing who we got on the call if we need to. Right. I'm operating off a computer here. I'm just going to go back to the bit that states what we're doing, because it's always useful to say that. What you want us to do, Jason, which is the meat of what we're up to, just so people got that in their mind, that what we want to enter this. It says scrutiny activity 8.1. If you look at it, members of the Cross-Cutting Resources Business Committee are invited to, bullet point 1, consider the information data presented in Appendix 1 and make comments, recommendations to the Director, that's to Corporate Services and Head of HR, on potential improvement activity that has not already been taking place or is really under place. So that is the activity for this afternoon, and that basically what you've got in those slides is part of it, is the main part of it. That's what we're looking at, isn't it, Jason? That's where we're going.
It is, Chair, yes.
So we start with the one you got there, which is our workforce. Members, questions on that? Useful questions on that one? Start with. Rose Seaborn, followed by Steve. Rose, do you put your hand up?
Yes, I did. I've just taken it down as you called my name, Chair. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I just, I've got a list of questions, and I wasn't sure that you were going to go through the slide, so apologies if I cross over. But on this slide, our workforce, I wanted to ask the diversity of our workforce. You did mention the age range. I just wondered about whether or not we were picking up the diversity of our residents within the workforce.
Diversity of employees, Councillor Seaburn.
Yes.
Yeah. We do. We record. We record that information. The information is, because it's shared with us voluntarily, isn't always accurate. And some people, some staff are, or a fair number of staff, to be honest with you, are reluctant to share that level of detail about their personal situation, whether they are disabled or from a minority ethnic group. We try and encourage them as much as we possibly can to do so. But what we find then is the data, not only is the data very small in numbers, so we're always reluctant to share it too widely, because sometimes, in some cases, you can pinpoint individuals within the organisation. So we're just a little bit cautious about sharing it, because they are very small numbers in the first place. But we do capture that information. We do record that information. Yeah.
Rose, supplement?
No, thanks. I've got a couple of questions. Do you want me to come on each slide what my question is?
Yeah, yes, please, if you would. And I was going to, before I bring Steve in, I was going to reflect the same question myself. I noticed that the small, in terms of our workforce, your recording of the disability and the ethnic, it's quite glaring there. So how does that compare with what the general things like the census and recorded data locally, is it reflective of it, or as you've just said, is it a problem?
There are issues that are drawn out within the equality strategy, to be honest with you, Chair. They're not ones that I've prepared to respond to today. But
I suspected that.
I don't think, please, you take this as a bit of off the top of the head type response, to be honest with you, is that they're not untypical. I don't think that there's anything in terms of numbers within the community that are declaring themselves disabled. For example, I don't think proportionally there's much difference, and the same in terms of minority ethnic groups.
Would that be something that other employers would have the same problems with as well?
Well, they may do. I think the makeup of Torfaen is unique to Torfaen, Chair. I'm sure that the proportions in Cardiff will be a lot different to ours. But it doesn't, for me, it doesn't indicate that there aren't any alarm bells ringing in terms of our policies and processes. We can always do some more, obviously, to improve opportunities. But I think the numbers are similar.
Thank you for that. Steve Evans?
I think stretching as far as he can go, it just puts the staff under a lot more pressure with their multiple roles.
You right on that, Jason?
Yeah, I don't think Councillor Evans, just to be reassured, I think that the ambitions within the county plan reflect the resources that we've got available to deliver against it. So whilst we're lean as an organisation, I think I don't think I don't think there's any risk that we're not going to be able to deliver the county plan as a result of the numbers of staff that we've got.
You okay with that, Steve? Steve?
Yeah, I did say yeah.
Okay, right. Corporate chamber?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've got Councillor David Williams.
I thought it might be him.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay? Yep.
Yes, please. Fire away.
Okay, yeah, a couple of observations as much as anything else. Firstly, I think it was a helpful question in relation to diversity. And just a suggestion, perhaps, that within such an HR report, it's helpful to sort of say that as a council seeking to be exemplar as an employer, representative of the area, even a general statement that would actually say we've done this comparative data with census, etc., and we can be confident that we are an exemplar employer in terms of our proportion of people with disability, ethnic minority, etc. I just think it's something that could be incorporated, so it's a suggestion. Second thing, it was very helpful to have the longitudinal data that you did, Jason, in terms of how it gone from the staff workforce from 2010. I think that's helpful as well to give a balance about how we become a leaner workforce, but also the point my colleague made about sort of perhaps there is something about the balancing of workload. Obviously, a part of that has been supported by move to different processes, automation, etc. And then my last point on this slide was around, you mentioned at 5.1, I think, in the report that there have been some 300 people involved in sort of staff consultation. It was really 2.3. Is there a sort of a standing grouping, if you like, that you're engaging with, and how do you look at making sure that's fully representative of the organisation in terms of range of grades and departments?
Sorry. Could you repeat that last bit of the question? I didn't quite catch it, sorry.
Sorry, in terms of the staff consultation, it was actually how you're getting a balance of grades and departments in terms of that. And part of that was then, do you have a sort of a regular group that you're going to, or is it very much a sort of, here's a one-off, anybody's interested to come in? It's just how it works, that consultation process, I think.
Are you referring to the survey work that we've done in the past?
It mentioned in the report at 5.1 that the strategy was developed and engaged with some 300 staff. So I was asking how that had been derived. Yeah, thank you.
You okay with that, Jason?
Yes, Chair. I think it was, as you suggested, a bit of a invite to all, and maybe not perhaps targeted. Tina perhaps can give you a more fulsome answer than I can. She's just checking the information on the strategy. In terms of the points about the diversity of the organisation, they are captured within the strategy, the workforce strategy, by the way. It's just something that Tina's just pointed out to me.
Oh, good. Right. Are you finished, David?
To be fair, Chair, I think the officers are having a quick look at the report. So.
No, I got that. Don't worry.
So, sorry, there were a variety of streams of consultation. So it wasn't just, we're asking for your views. It was targeted. It's described on that page. I can't quite read it with my glasses on, I'm afraid, but there were a number of streams of consultation that did take place to inform the strategy, including engaging with managers on their views.
So it's actually in the workforce strategy document.
Okay, thanks.
It's page
Thank you. Sorry.
Right.
Okay, Chair.
Right. Thank you. So if that's finished, Nathan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I could, Jason, just take you back a step just to tease out some of the issues around Steve's question. I think it's just whether whether you can reassure us or not. It's encouraging that you say that you're confident that despite being leaner, the workforce is still in a position where it can deliver on the county plan. But I think if you take an issue about delivery more widely, can you reassure us? Have you done modelling to ensure actually at what point the staff, or how much longer the staff might be able to take this sort of level of reorganisation and sort of greater responsibility? Because I think that the statistics of where we were in 2010, 2015 compared to now are quite telling, really, in terms of actually how much has been taken out of the organisation. And I guess there's a question to ensure that, do we think there is sort of a crossover point where continuing to be lean and efficient is actually going to be is going to be hamstrung by the fact that some teams and some members of staff are going to be doing more work than is potentially possible for them to commit to? And then also attached to that, have we done any work looking at those figures with sickness, and is there any danger that there is going to be some correlation between increased sickness, increased absences, and actually the more pressure we're putting on the staff in terms of actually taking on what were other people's roles?
Thanks, Councillor Yeo. I think inevitably there would be a tipping point where the organisation needs to be resourced to continue to deliver the services that we're required to deliver. And there's a lot of sensitivity within the organisation about where those tipping points are. I think I'm confident that we're tuned into how the organisation feels in terms of its capacity. This last year, there's, for example, been some significant change in admin and business support. We've reduced the staffing within that service area by 22. So there's been a reduction in 22 posts. But alongside that, we've introduced digital solutions that mean that we can actually continue to deliver a good service with fewer staff. So I think that's the template that we have to adopt as an organisation, and will adopt, is that we look at being smarter about how we do things. I don't believe we're anywhere near that tipping point, to be honest with you. I think there are lots of opportunities that we are progressing as an organisation to improve, for example, early intervention and prevention services, and how we're organised to be able to move that support upstream. So I think that inevitably within any organisation, an organisation say, stop, we can't do this anymore. And let's hope that we don't get to that stage as an organisation where we've got to say that. But I think there's a long way still for us to go to become more efficient and use digitisation and work more smartly. And we've got a programme of work, it's the Apollo, ingrained within the Apollo programme is that being smarter and working better. So I'm confident that we're nowhere near that tipping point at the moment, if that gives you some reassurance.
Nathan?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Right, Rose Seaborn?
Thank you, Chair. I had a question on stakeholder engagement, actually, so means we've discussed it now. I'll bring it up now. And I just wondered whether or not, because you mentioned discussing it with staff, and I think it was also mentioned that they'd had a discussion with young people. I just wondered what engagement had been taken with others, like residents or community groups, and particularly businesses, so that we know what is available to out there and what we can attract from. So I just wondered whether or not it was just the young persons group and the staff that were consulted.
It is the staff primarily, Councillor Seaborn. It's very much focused on the development of the workforce internally. This document. That doesn't mean that there may be opportunities if we're looking at in the future. Shared opportunities across sectors for apprenticeship programmes, for a want of a better word. We're not there yet. That might be an ambition for the future. And I guess I don't apologise for the fact that it is internally focused, because we've got a lot to do internally to get ourselves in order in the first place. But it's a good point. But the whole engagement around the development of the workforce strategy was with staff and managers primarily.
Thank you there, Rose. We'll go on to slide 2, which is gender pay analysis, unless anybody's got any burning questions they want to come in on this one. Right, questions on gender pay analysis and senior leaders at that as well. On then.
Councillor Williams in the Chamber, Chair.
David?
It was simply to say that I think it's very helpful. It gives us a bit more reassurance that we actually do have a gender pay balance. And I hadn't seen this information before, and I thought it was very useful and reassuring about what the Council is doing. Thank you.
I agree. Yeah.
I was going to say was considering the last thing we did, the equalities assurance, it does show that we're actually putting our money where our mouth is on this one.
And we would note that it's been caught other councils out.
Yes. Any other observations on this?
No.
Right. So you seem content on that, members. Average age of employees, that's been alluded to already.
Yeah.
That's got some questions around it, and I noticed, Nathan, you'll come in on this. Please say observations,
I do.
please.
I do. It's just an observation here, because I guess it sort of links back to the Apollo stuff you mentioned earlier on, Jason, because surely is there going to be an issue about how much support we're going to have to put in to scale up some of the competencies amongst the staff to go for much more of a tech-based sort of solution way of working? And actually, because again, there's going to be some sliding scale there, looking at taking myself and some of the other people on this call as the examples now, looking at the Asian demographic profile, the staff might need a bit more support than potentially some down the other end of the age spectrum. And it's just actually what is that sort of cost-effective nature of that going to be in terms of how we need to pump prime some of those that training and expertise from the get-go. And also, I may, Chair, just to say, after I've had Jason's response, I'm going to have to go for a work commitment just after 3 o'clock.
Thank you, Nathan.
I think as we introduce new, I think you're referring to the support for new digital solutions, for example, for people perhaps aren't like myself, who aren't as tech savvy as some of the youngsters that are joining the organisation, who frankly work in a totally different way than I can envisage. So I think inevitably when we do introduce, and we expend a lot of effort trying to support staff to adjust and to learn new methods of working when they are introduced. There's lots going on. It feels quite incessant at the moment. We're introducing new filing systems and new we've had teams, and the abilities that teams have to make our lives easy is just mind-blowing to somebody like me. So yeah, we've got to spend a lot of time thinking about that and making sure that people are comfortable working in yours. I think that's what you were saying. You weren't referring to career development more broadly, were you? You were referring to... No,
I was... Yeah. So just my passing comment is actually, I think we're right, and it's good that the Apollo programme we're going to the moon, is working correctly. But it's just, I guess, the issue, if I had more time, I'd want to get into, is actually there's going to be an issue looking at the demographic of both the staff and the residents versus sort of the need for us to upscale and sort of re-equip ourselves for technological sort of platform design and delivery. And it's whether there's going to be a mismatch between where we are as a workforce, where the residents are across the borough, and their ability to consume that and take it on board, but do it all in a timely fashion, because obviously there are more economic pressures coming down the line. And after that word salad, I'm afraid I'm going to have to go. But thank you very much for answering the questions whilst I've been online.
Thank you, Nathan, for your contribution. I had Rose Seaborn and then Steve Evans has come on. Which you wants to go first? You're up to you to pair who wants to go first on that one.
Steve, you can go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
The question I got in the 56 to 65 age range, what numbers have left in the turnover and redundancy, and what is being done for the skills gap leaving the organisation?
That's a good question, that.
I've got a similar question on that. Do you want to take the two of them, Chair?
Well, can I also jump in as well, because we have a problem now, haven't we? Although we strictly retire people, we also have a problem that people want to work. I mean, I'm 70 odd now, and there are people going on. We also have a skill shortage, allegedly, amongst skilled people, and we also got the problem about bringing young people on. What strategy do we have for both ends, as it were?
We've spoken about what we plan to do to increase the number of young people joining the organisation.
We have, yes.
It's a pertinent point about people leaving the organisation, and one thing that we referred to in the presentation was about the need to focus more on succession planning. I think, as an organisation, that has happened organically within the services. So, and people have left this organisation continuously, since its existence. So that there are things that are happening with the organisation that make sure that there is continuity and there are people coming through. I think we've identified areas where that makes us a little bit nervous, and there may be some skill shortages that we need to act more positively about doing something like introducing career pathways within the organisation that facilitates that. So areas where that we have difficulty recruiting, it might be engineering, it might be lawyers, that we take more positive overt actions to ensure that we've got a supply, an internal supply, working with universities, for example, and providing sponsorship opportunities for students and work arrangements post qualification. So it's early days for us. It's an ambition for us to do a lot more work around succession planning. But I don't think it means the organisation is going to fall over anytime soon. I think people have been leaving the organisation and people have been filling their shoes for a long, long time.
Anybody want to come back on
that?
Yeah,
if I could come back in.
Yeah.
Just to say that, as you can see by the meeting today, digital is not always the answer. Having the skills and the mindset there, you're saying about 22 people left for the digital enhancement. That is not in place yet. We're still working to the old rules. So if the digital side fails, we need the people with a proper skill set.
Back on, yeah.
Okay, one at a time.
Yeah, Chair.
Rose?
Yeah, I'm trying hard to keep to the slides, but we're crossing over.
I'm not worried about this crossover committee. Anyway.
Okay. Well, my one question on skill development is what are we doing to upskill our staff with the necessary skills and competencies to deliver our strategic priorities? And the other one was on the sickness figures. Due to our average, older age group, is this affecting the sickness absent figures? Because obviously
we are crossing a bit there, Rose, but go on, get on with
it. Well, no, I wasn't crossing. Somebody else had already crossed, Chair. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Jason?
Thanks, Chair. In terms of skill development, upskilling, we have a number of interventions that we support staff with, not only those what we could consider to be mandatory skill sets to work within Torfaen County Borough Council, those things that we expect people to know about. That might be the systems that we use. So we have, when people join us, we've got quite a comprehensive induction programme. So there's some mandatory training in there. There's also some specific how to use Teams, how to use the digital tools that we use on a routine basis. And then within the services themselves, that relationship between the manager and the employee, you know, it's a key responsibility for a manager to support the development of their staff so they're effective in their jobs. So we have the appraisal process that allows those conversations to take place, those priorities to be considered, and those development opportunities to be considered. So there's a lot going on, and it's certainly as a central service, as a HR service and an organisation development service, there's a lot of stuff that we provide centrally to support that activity as well. Quite a broad range of things. Hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Seaborn, in terms of skill development.
Yes, it was the comment about talent identifying. It was whether or not we had to wait for somebody to identify a talent, or we had a programme of skills development. That was the main gist. Thank you.
Yeah, we have
Janet?
a programme.
Yeah, Chair. Thanks, Jay. Mine is on a similar question as Rose about skills. Are we considering offering bursaries to students who come into the authority but want to continue their studies with university, and then, you know, keep them a position after they finish their degrees to come back and work for the authorities?
It's one of a number of options we're considering, Councillor Jones.
That's a good answer.
That's great. Thanks very much, Jason. That's fine. Thanks, Chair.
I have a question as well, because the thing about local authority, you've got the sort of civil service type officers, which are generic. You've also got the craft and technical people, and people like civil, you know, like social workers and teachers. But you've also got the more arcane type of specialisms which councils are famous for, which I won't go into detail. But when you've got things like canals and craft people, those sort of things don't seem. You know, and there's one or two places in the country that do those. How you get people to take over them, people that we've had for 30 or 40 years, I don't know, because there's only one or two people that are doing that in the whole of the council, maybe in the whole of South East Wales in some cases. How you get those skills retained? I mean, canals is a good example, with, you know, or other things like greenkeeping and stuff like that. We've seen people that have been in authority a long time on that. How do you retain those sort of people with quite specialist craft skills?
It's tricky, isn't it? I'm always surprised about the diversity of vocational training opportunities that exist within the along the M4 corridor. To be honest with you, I'm always surprised that certain programmes run from farriering and so on and so forth.
That's it.
So I think some of these skills that you refer to surprisingly are still supported, but inevitably it would be those apprenticeship opportunities, teaching somebody on the job. They've always been and always will be the main source of maintaining some of those niche scarce skills.
Are we in danger sometimes of having to take who? I mean, the only other aspect of this is they're not so much private sector as a sort of agency amongst authorities. I wonder about new ways of looking at that.
Yes, very possibly.
Yeah, partnerships, which we got a lot of.
Yeah, I can't think. Nobody's knocking my door down at the moment, looking for partnership opportunities for canal work, for example. But they may well do, and that might be an opportunity that we
no, it's a famous. They do it in England, and they do it at the Canal and River Trust. But I mean, there are examples of creative ways of doing it that don't cost the authority a lot of money. The skill set's the problem.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that one. I've got somebody in the chamber. I suspect it's David again, is it?
Councillor Williams.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I think it was just quickly, the question really was the sort of, in terms of keeping some of that, as much as the experience is also another corporate memory that's sometimes useful to retain. So do we have a process of, if you like, trying to extract helpful information in exit interviews before we lose people?
Thanks, David. That's a good one.
And the second point then is, I think I know the answer to some of this, but, are we looking at occasionally re-employing pensioners to draw in some of their skills if we need some sort of transition.
Thanks, Councillor Williams. We have an exit interview process that we try and capture some of that information. We all know that Nigel is leaving, so it won't be a form. It won't be a form that we'll need to capture some of that organisation. It'll be a very thick notebook. But we do try to. It's all voluntary. It's not something that we compel people to do. But we try to make sure that there are overlaps, so that when somebody does leave us, that we are prepared and well in advance. And as you know, Nigel won't be leaving us until Christmas, so we are, we're trying to make provision for a good handover to whoever will pick up the reins, and that's typical, I think, and has always happened. Yeah.
Thank you.
The bit about the knowledge gap and pensioners employed. You got any ideas on that, Jason?
We have got a policy position on the re-employment of pensioners. We've got to be very, very careful, of course, haven't we, about that. There's some sensitivities over that. There are circumstances when we do, and it's appropriate that we do, particularly when we've got scarce skills. We try and avoid it as much as possible for obvious reasons, but there are examples. But there's an authorisation process for that re-employment as well, Chair.
I have noticed former directors of social services floating around when I've been a councillor that I knew in other places that have come here. But it is this business about consultants and people like that. But I did ask you that question myself about the skill gaps and people that are working into their 70s even, because some people are quite capable of doing that. I mean, how do we go about things like that, and the desirabilities of such things when we obviously are lessening what we're doing, but at the same time there are skill gaps, as David suggested.
Yeah, it's tricky, particularly when we've got people leaving that we've been successful in filling jobs. We're quite as an organisation, I'm continually surprised how we're able to attract talent to the organisation, even in areas where they're typically hard to fill. So I think we've got a good reputation, which stands us in good stead in terms of recruitment.
Okay, that's good. Right, go on.
Yeah, it's just the point that Tina was making, is that we've got 90 people who are 66 years old and above, so there are a number of people that we can expect to leave us fairly soon.
You have a lot of advertisement all at once, which is going to give you guys a lot of work to do.
Yes.
Well done. Okay, any more on this one, which is obviously a subject that's interested members a lot, and obviously we see the results of it, so that's probably why we know about it. We've got used to the people. Okay, so we're going to next item 4. What are we doing? Which is what are we doing? Which is some of the solutions, which I think was what members were interested in. Anybody? I thought we would. Steve?
Yeah, just to say, looking at the figures.
Yeah.
When your staff is in a civic centre or the building, there's bound to be a higher sickness rate when they're doing manual handling jobs, particularly if you're doing refuse or anything like that. How do we look to give that additional support? Because these people, are not able to work till they're in their 70s because of the type of environments they work in, out day in, day out. I know that myself. I'm coming to the age now where I'm falling apart from working outside over the years. But what are you doing to support them?
Apologies. Okay, one of the things we look at when we look at the sickness absence is we start to look at what type of reasons the people are off, why are they off sick, what age are they, and what can they do. So you brought up a particular issue around physical ability. So, for example, we've got quite an ageing workforce in our refuse and waste section. So some of the loaders were finding it very difficult and were taking a lot of time off with musculoskeletal issues. So what we actually did is we had a physiotherapist, and she's trained as a physiotherapist, and she goes down now once a month and she shows them exercises, and she shows them how to do different things in different ways, how to adapt, and she actually gives them strengthening exercises. So what we're trying to do is, rather than just deal with sickness absence, we're trying to support people that are getting older to do things in a different way, or to help prevent those things getting worse. So there's lots of different strategies that we're picking up, but that one on physical, we are well aware of that ageing workforce, especially around physical ability, and we're trying to put different levels of support in where we can.
Thanks, Steve. I was trying to get us onto what we're doing. You bumped us into sickness figures, which I was trying, into sickness. Colette, I wonder where you're going to go with this.
Really good to see that we're engaging with our looked after children. Thanks very much. It's been a long time.
Oh, thank you, Colette. You're bringing us back again. Brilliant. Right. So any more on that, Jason or Tina?
No, it's we just acknowledge the
really good.
It's a responsibility we have to these young people as a corporate parent, to make sure that they have the best opportunity.
Can you allude a little bit more on this, what we're doing a bit? Because I think it's quite exciting. You're going right down to children. My grandchild, you're going into schools at primary level and looking at world of work. That's really exciting. And what we're doing as a borough, I think that, sort of thing like that is the age we should be engaging at.
Yes, it's a developing initiative. For want of a better word, I think we're exploring how we can promote local government as a career choice at the earliest opportunity. So we're going to these career fairs, and we may not have the fanciest pens and sweets, but there's a lot more we can do to promote the career opportunities in local government, which we've all here have been beneficiaries of.
Not everybody's going to university is one of the calls you're hearing on Radio 4 these days. And, what can you do for apprenticeships, what you can do for steady job? Exactly.
Yeah. I think that those opportunities are becoming more mainstream, for want of a better word.
Anybody? Janet, you're next. You there, Janet?
I was going to sickness one, so I held back.
Can you hold the sickness for a moment while we discuss?
My question was.
Go on.
My question. It's the next page on sickness I was coming in on.
Yeah, well, can we just do for those that want to do what are we doing? David, are you what are we doing on sickness?
What we're doing, Chair.
Yeah, please do what we're doing for the moment, and then we bring you in on the sickness, Janet.
Councillor Lucy Williams has a question on this slide, please, Chair.
All right, okay, David, Lucy, and then David. All right.
Yeah, sorry. Can I just clarify? I thought at the moment we're doing what are we doing in terms of recruitment. So that's
yes.
Particular question. So
please, Lucy, come in.
So I was looking with interest at the engaging with looked after children work experience.
Yes.
It's really interesting to know how that's developing.
I keep pressing the wrong button, I do apologise. So what we're looking to do is we realise there's a lot of looked after young children that have different needs, different work experiences. So we're working with the looked after team to look to develop the skills. So not only what work can they come in and do apprenticeships, but also what experience can we give these young people in the world of work. So we've got 4 or 5 placements on the go at the moment, looking at different skill sets and different areas they want a career to develop in, and we're letting them work with the teams. So we've got somebody out at the moment that wants to work in our street scene. They want to do some horticultural work. So we've got them interacting with the communities and working in that area. There's somebody else that's doing some office-based work. That's work experience. Then once they're ready, we're going to support them to apply for apprenticeship roles or for other careers in the council. But we're taking a more proactive role, and rather than just saying the jobs are out there, apply for them. We're looking at particular skill sets and their abilities, and then we're matching roles to them and proactively going out and saying, these are available, would you like an opportunity, and come in and see if you would like to do this role. So that is, it's a work in progress. It's not perfect yet, but we're just trying to develop that to make sure that we're reaching all aspects of that service.
Just to add in conjunction with that, obviously, then the support added or support provided for those young people as well through their social workers or through their YPAs within the 16 plus and the aftercare the care leavers team.
Thank you very much.
David?
Thank you, Chair. I think it was an observation as much as anything else. I think it's quite helpful to obviously to have sort of background about some of the work that's been going forward, but I guess it's also, I recall some of these discussions in my past life and direct involvement in some of them in terms of employment and taking on board apprentices and things like that. So I think it's quite helpful to have some of that longitudinal data that shows how we're progressing with sort of apprenticeships, because what you could read this as actually something we're just doing, whereas I think it's actually something we have been doing, and it's helpful to get that, convey that across in terms of the workforce strategy to members. So it was just that observation rather than anything else, because I think we've got a good story to tell. I think that's where the trend information is quite useful. I think I was also encouraged when I heard you say, Tina, about sort of some of the changes to the recruitment process, because again, I seem to remember making this point in the past that we had the same standard recruitment process as somebody was coming in right at the beginning of their career and somebody as a sort of group manager or something like that. And it did feel quite unbalanced. So I'm very pleased to see that, and I would be interested to hear some of the examples of how people have found that in terms of coming into the organisation and their onboarding. So observations mainly. Thank you.
Could I, Rose Simon, are you on this? You're on this one, aren't you, Rose? I suspect.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree with Dave, and the list is quite impressive. I just wondered if there was a gap, though, with our armed forces and our armed force families. Obviously, they travel around the world, and they sometimes leave the force and come back home, and whether or not we've got priorities for them in other departments, such as housing and different things. I just wondered whether or not we could include them in our recruitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Seaborn. We do, of course, we have the Armed Forces Covenant, and we do make commitments to veterans when they are looking for employment with us. Sorry, I should be a bit more clear, perhaps. These what we are doing are aligned to our needs to reduce the age profile of the workforce rather than recruitment more generally. They're focused on bringing in younger people in, and typically veterans are not within that category, of course, although they could be close with that category. Yeah, but we of course we have a guaranteed interview commitment to veterans when they apply for jobs with the council, as long as they meet the minimum criteria, of course.
Thank you.
I was just going to add something, because I live with people who've got ADHD, stroke, autism, and obviously there are people with other conditions that mean that normal employment or employment that's considered, I know it's under supported employment. I wonder what we do for that and people that have got other health issues that we talked about, mental health, but in other ways would, with the right support, be capable of working. What we do for them, because it's a very supportive environment, the council, in some places. I mean, obviously, I'm aware of what we did for recycling when we enabled some people to work in recycling that wouldn't be able, without some degree of support and mentoring, be able to do that as well. So I'm wondering what we're doing for them.
Before the COVID pandemic, we did do a considerable amount of work on supported employment for people with different neurodiversities. So we had a scheme in place where we worked with certain organisations, and we looked at that, again, skill sets of the individual, and rather than try and slot them into a role, we actually changed roles to enhance the skill sets of that individual. So we have got some people in the council who've done that for. Unfortunately, that did taper off during COVID. It is difficult to get people into the organisation. We are looking to re-energise that commitment and to work with our adult community teams, again, to start doing that supported employment piece. So we're going to be putting some proposals together as part of the workforce strategy.
The next part of that question then is obviously what David was talking about, tailoring applications. The bog standard, your experience through everything from the director right down to a collector obviously needs to be tailored, because that's very daunting if you're not neurotypical.
You are absolutely right. So one of the problems that we know that we've picked up is historically, all local government has asked for people to have 5 GCSEs or 5 O-levels to come in through the door. We've changed that. We've now got to realise that there are lots of people out there looking for employment, and we don't get the numbers that we used to get. We've got to start changing those bars in terms of experience and asks. So now, in terms of our job roles, holistically, we look at what you actually need to do the job, not a whole range of experience. And when we're looking at specialist employment, we'll be looking at supported employment for people with, we'll be looking at their skill sets rather than the skill sets of the roles. So we will be changing that around.
That's a very refreshing thing to hear, because I know only too well with members of my family that would put them off quicker. So it's inverting is what you're doing in terms of going for the person for the job, not the role for the job. That sounds really good. Anybody else? Janet, are you coming in on this one, or do you want to go for the other one at the moment?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go on.
No, I'm on this one. What are we doing to encourage? How we involve people with autistic adult needs? Because I know some of these young people have really got really big aspirations, and we have facilities, or the business has taken on these young people. I find it distressing. I know a couple of young people who've got really good catering skills then, and they've got their diplomas, but they find it difficult to get employment. And I'm sure this is with other skills as well. So just like to know how we're trying to encourage these people into working for the authority.
Councillor Jones, we're trying to broaden the opportunity through the apprenticeship scheme. To be frank, what we're trying to achieve is that those 5 GCSE posts, which seems to be the standard expectation coming into local government, regardless of the grade, we're doing away with that expectation and converting as many of those more junior posts as possible, with a default expectation that they are going to become apprentices at that grade range. So that would mean that we would hope that the opportunities for young people coming out of school increase with fewer traditional expectations.
Yeah.
I think you are breaking up and freezing a little bit, Councillor Jones. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. No problem. Thanks, Jason. As I said, some of these youngsters have really good aspirations, and they got really good vocational skills as well. It's just trying to adapt them into the current workforce, isn't it? Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Jason.
Just to continue that response a little bit, is that the typical way that we assess somebody's suitability for a job is to invite them to interview. And, it's not necessarily the best way of determining somebody's fit for the role. I know so many people that just clam up in interview and really don't present themselves in the best light. Whereas, we can be confident that they're probably very good at what they do. But it is the standard, and it's a cultural change. And some of these cultural changes are take a long time and require a lot of effort to change. It's not that we shouldn't be shying away from changing expectations. It just takes a long time to convince people that there are different ways of doing things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The other thing I was going to say, I am aware that council does voluntary tasters and things in schools. Is there any scope for, in terms of experience, doing kind of internships and ways to get people into the feel as a more formal thing. I mean, I know schools do that with young people that need to get into a work environment. Is there anything that we could look at in terms of that? I'm just wondering.
So we're going to be doing the work experience programme, which will be around young people who haven't yet decided on a career and come in and do a work experience for a period. But we're also looking specifically at internships and especially occupational shortages. So where there are roles that we can't recruit to, we're looking for those young people that maybe not quite sure what they want to do, or they are sure, and then we'll bring them into the organisation and we'll train them and support them to enable them to grow into that occupation. So we've got things, the typical planner roles. So those roles, we're looking at bringing people in at grade 5, a planner can go up to a grade 9, and then supporting them through training, development, and sort of that mentoring to become a qualified planner, but also an experienced planner. So we're looking at those occupational shortages and those jobs that we find hard to recruit to. So that's one of the ones we're looking at.
Okay, there, Chair. We'll move on to the next slide. I'm just conscious of time now.
Should we move on to the sickness one? With Janet, you wanted to come in on that, didn't you? Have you moved off that one, Janet?
Question.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, please
That's
give
a
your
question.
Yes, please do.
How are we supporting our staff coming back into work, into the office environment, from working from home during the COVID period? I know some people have been affected by coming back into it, and what are we doing to support them?
I think it's become a bit more of the norm now. I know that there was a lot of tentativeness amongst staff immediately post-pandemic. So we saw, once the offices were opened, we saw a few trickles of staff returning, clearly anxious about the return to work, and there's, I guess, a sensitivity at the time over the ongoing place of the infection within the community as well. I think we're back into a new norm now, Councillor Jones. I think that people are now used to splitting their time between home and office. So I don't think that anxiety exists anymore. And actually, when we did carry out a survey, slap bang in the middle of the pandemic, as people were starting to come back to work, actually, the majority of people were saying this is a positive experience for us. There were very few people that were saying that, and they were able to balance their work-life balance a little better. It's an ongoing monitoring. It's not something that we've just ignored. We continue to try and support staff, and we will have staff that we try and encourage to be coming into the office more frequently and meeting with colleagues and meeting with their managers. It's an expectation that. It's a healthy expectation on the part of the employer to see members of the staff so that they don't become isolated.
Okay. That's brilliant. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Chair.
Right,
yeah,
thank you.
That's fine.
David or Lucy, one of those.
Councillor Lucy Williams.
We are two separate items,
No, I didn't wish you it was. All I get is corporate.
So, two parts to this question, if that's okay. I just want to make sure I'm understanding these figures correctly. It's not my strong point looking at. So there's the sickness figures, the internal summary of the directorate, and then underneath that there's the mental health sickness absence. So, am I understanding it rightly that this 28% of the mental health sickness absence is included in that total amount of sicknesses? Yes, I have understood that correctly. Right, so that's good. So of all these, of this, the summary of all the total sicknesses, 28% of that are mental health. Right, I got that, so that's good. So simply my other question was, given that it is, although it's come down, although it's still a very significant element, Has there been any sort of particular analysis of the mental health issues in the different departments? I was noticing, particularly sort of in the economy and environment, it's quite high on both levels. So is there kind of like a bit of analysis going on there?
There would be, Councillor Williams, within the service area. So they would, and I know they are, looking at individual cases and trends within the service area and drawing some conclusions over some of the patterns that are existing. It's probably not appropriate for me to share that more broadly here, but sure. it is something that the organisation and the team, the HR team, are supporting the services with. A lot of it is... how can I describe it? You know, it's been around the 30% for some time. I don't know what there are a variety of reasons. Some of it isn't necessarily work related. Sure. When somebody is off ill, they may have stress and anxiety on their fit note. That may have nothing to do with their work environment. It could well be just a domestic issue. I'm waffling a little bit, but I think that there's some local analysis done and work done at a local level to try and influence it.
That's it, thank you.
So we were talking about sickness trends. I wanted to ask something myself, which was I noticed with respect to the occupations, there was some difference between people that obviously were operational and those that were doing other occupations, obviously of a professional nature. Is that significant? Certainly in terms of things like social work or education, teachers and that.
It's typical, Chair.
I'm trying not to be too sort of draw too much, because obviously you must notice that if people are out doing the heavy manual jobs that we've got out which we have to do. Does that? I'm presuming, but it seems to be the case with if you are lifting things, then that would be that. But I wonder what it is with the other things that we're discussing here.
It is. It's typical. It's the environmental exposures that staff group are exposed to. It's typical. You typically get a higher prevalence of absence, sickness absence within the operational groups, and also that direct care function as well. That's typically a staff group that are exposed to, environmental things, that may cause them illness.
Does that go for the environment where they obviously would stress level, like care and education? The stress that.
Within social care, within adult social care, would be that direct care element where they're exposed to, the lifting, the sort of musculoskeletal related absences, and others. They have no control of the environment that they're working sometimes. So that there may be bugs and so on and so forth that they may suffer with perhaps more readily than others.
Because the next question, because it really knows the sickness trends, South East Wales and certainly around our authorities, we've got the general poor health of the areas in which you live. If you look Public Health Wales, does that follow with our staff? What we get with the general population, or our staff generally healthier, and how can we influence that? That was the question I was going to ask you, because I'd had fairly recently, a few years back, looked at Public Health Wales records, and generally people working
they tend to have a better time of it than if they weren't working. That's the question I wanted to lead on to, because we were in a position to influence that, and what you've got going on here would suggest that we're in a position to do something. We lead into the what we done bit. We're in a position to influence that, aren't we, as an employer and a public body?
I don't think there's necessarily any correlation with community well-being trends to sickness absence. There may be some correlation over healthy lifestyles within the community, and our staff within the community, people within the community, of course, work for us. But I don't think there's a significant one there, Chair.
It's interesting. So when you put the sickness trends, you remarked when you were presenting that we were in the higher sickness rates. Can you give any reason for that?
I think the primary reason is our effectiveness in managing that, managing absence. To be truthful, I don't think it's much more than that, and we're evidencing that with the greater attention that we're putting on managing sickness absence and the trend going down. So I'm pretty sure that that's the primary reason, rather than any other factor that might be geographic or the like.
Thank you for ruling that out. Anyway, so Rose Seaborn. Rose.
Thank you, Chair. Couldn't get my mic on then. I'll ask my question I asked previously. Due to our average, more older age group, is this reflected in our sickness levels?
Good question.
There inevitably will be an age-related element in it. Again, it's not typical to us. I think because we've got an older workforce, there will be things that ailments that affect an older workforce. I don't think it's significant, though. It's a significant factor, Councillor Seaborn.
Right.
I don't think we're seeing a greater level of absence because somebody's older. I think if we're looking at, sometimes we're looking at poor absence, poor attendance rates in the younger people, to be truthful.
Thank you.
Somebody in the chamber, which one of you is it?
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions on sickness very quickly. First of all, I noticed you've got targets down for 23-24. So first of all, it's a little bit how they're derived. And secondly, do you feel that those are useful? Because obviously, you know, targets can sometimes, if you set the wrong targets, you get the answers that you don't necessarily want. So I guess it's a little bit about that, how they're set and how useful you see them being. If I do the second part of my question as well, which was actually to sort of on the mental health, it did appear to be a bit of a trend that Q4 had more days lost, and I wondered if there were any underlying reasons so far, evident or not evident, being looked into, why we seem to have that pattern emerging.
The pattern in Q4 is seasonal. Yeah. It's after Christmas period, and it always, I think, almost without fail, is the period when there's the highest rate of absence. The first question, sorry, Councillor Williams, apology.
It was how the targets are derived, and if you feel they're useful and in what way.
They were arrived as a basis of an improvement target based upon that particular service area directorate, and they were agreed with the managers. Nothing more scientific than let's make sure that they're going to be achievable based on the upturn for the previous year, but let's set them as a challenging target. Yeah.
I thought it was likely, but I thought it was right to ask that. So, and the only other very quick one was. It did seem on Q3 for SRS, 9% seems very much an outlier, which would suggest that maybe there's some data missing. Just noticed it, that was all, it stood out.
You right with that, Jason?
Just looking at the data, Chair.
Okay.
are you looking? Is it the total, the average days lost for?
Sorry, it's on page 30 with the mental health. When you're looking at sort of SRS at the bottom, we've got 47% as total sickness, 35%, 9%, 28%. 9% seemed very much out of kilter with every other element there, so it did wonder what might be behind that. Don't expect an answer now. It just was something statistically that stood out.
I actually know the answer to that.
Oh, brilliant.
Wonderful.
There was a series of cases with individuals where there was a particular issue around mental health. We put in some intensive support packages, so we actually got those people back into work. There was 2 people that left the organisation because of ill health issues and ongoing ill health, which we supported to leave, and the others we got back into work. So it was actually an action plan we put together. So that's why that figure is substantially lower.
Which I think gives the reason why it's useful to get behind the statistics and to ask the questions about some of them, because there may be a good story to tell. So thank you.
Thank you there, David. Steve Evans?
Thank you, Chair. The question I want to ask is what data and stats have you got for the length of time that people are off work and then return? I've sat on other boards where if they're off for 7 days, it's recorded as a 7-day return to work, and then they work out the average of all the staff that's been off. So have you got anything along that line? Because whether I missed it in here, but I haven't seen anything.
I'm not quite clear of the question, Councillor Evans. Are you looking for a more in-depth, which we obviously haven't provided?
When I worked on the fire service, they had separate. If their staff was off for 1 or 2 months, they would have that recorded as a data, then for the return of work, and they would do it on not individuals, but on an overall time frame.
Oh, right, okay, I've got you. In terms of categorisation of long-term or short-term absence? Right, okay. Yeah, well, we can do record it in that way. I think we do provide that data to service areas in that way as well. What we also do is we utilise a calculation called the Bradford factor. It's one that's been within the industry for a long, long time, which looks not necessarily at the length of the absence as a single event, but looks at patterns and the impact that absence has on the workplace. So, for example, if somebody is intermittently off for 1 or 2 days, periodically, it may add up to the same as a longer-term absence, but its impact, the impact that it has on the workplace is greater. So there's a calculation, there's a bit of a calculation that works out the effect of that, so that we're able to focus our attention on those absences that are most disruptive to the workplace.
Is that all right, Steve?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for that.
I'm going to move us on slightly because I'm going to be reminded by Rebecca we need to. We've gone through the sickness trends, and then we are now on to 9 and 10, which is kind of bookends what we have done and what we're going to do. Is everybody okay with that? Questions around those pair, please? Everybody content with that? I think they're an interesting set of questions. Can I ask a question to start you off with then? We're looking at the reviewing what we have done, and then we're going to do. How achievable do you think that what we're going to do are?
We've committed to do them, Chair, so we would have failed if we didn't. That's
a very good answer, Jason. Thank you.
Sorry.
Let's put it another way. How successful has that been at the moment?
Well, we've seen, the interventions that we've described that we've already done as having a positive effect, I think, on absence rates.
Yeah.
I think managers have been more skilled at managing absence, and not to make too much of it, but I think that's the key reason why the absence is coming down, is managers are more confident and skilled at managing absence. Simple.
Yeah. Right. Somebody in the chamber. I suspect David, isn't it?
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, in sort of what we're going to do, I think it's very helpful to see this as things taking forward. I suppose my recollection was that some work was done in the past about sort of workshops for staff, videos, etc. So the question really is whether those are still available, whether they're set to be updated, because obviously with people working remotely, I can understand that that's probably quite a helpful tool to get some of that across. I certainly seem to remember some of the difficult conversations type videos and things, and I think that's quite an effective way of getting things across. So an update, really. Thank you.
That's very interesting.
Rose, go on. Sorry.
It's very interesting you should say that, because we've looked at the research online around where they're successful in managing absence, and the NHS have got websites that open, the public can see them, around managing sickness absence, and they are called Hints and Tips, and all you need to know in 30 seconds. And they're very short videos around having that difficult conversation, how to manage mental health sickness, how to ask a question, and hints and tips. So we're looking at that resource, which we can very easily adapt for a Torvine scenario, to see how we can use that. We're going to put it through the managers forum to say, will this help you? How can we improve on it? And we've got digital content officers that can then design that in-house, so that becomes a Torvine resource. So we've already picked that up, as we think that's going to be a critical way for supporting managers with remote working going forward.
You were obviously watching Councillor's seminar yesterday with the NHS, with the NHS managers yesterday. That was interesting. Rose?
Yeah, just to comment on performance management, which is a priority of the county plan, and I just wondered, what are we going to do? How are we actually permeating the performance management strategy through our workforce?
Rose, that's a good one.
You may be aware, Councillor Seaborn, we have performance dashboards at every meeting of leadership team. So we consider performance for each of the directorates. And on that 12-week cycle, we've got a dedicated session on workforce. So we have a dashboard with a lot of the information that you've seen here today, and that's scrutinised by leadership team. That high-level scrutiny, of course, permeates through the organisation naturally. If the services are aware that it's been looked at by the Chief Executive and leadership team, they, of course, take note of that. So it takes on a greater prominence amongst the management teams throughout the organisation. So I think it's just naturally permeating through the organisation as a result of the attention that it's getting.
Thank you. I just wondered whether it needed to be included in what we're going to do. We're already doing it, obviously.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you for that. Then the last slide we got is recruitment and retention. Anybody want to go at that? Important subject, not least. I will. All right. Steve Evans. Good.
Thank you, Chair. The question I really got it, why are there so many turnovers of staff leaving? Is this due to the environment in the workplace, or the increased workload and expectations on them?
I don't think it's either of those reasons, Councillor Evans, to be honest with you. I think we're a big organisation. People leave for a variety of reasons. They retire, they get promotion and go to another organisation. There are a variety of reasons why people leave an organisation. Always have been. I don't think there's anything particularly about the workplace. I think this is a good place to work. I've worked in other places in local government, and I think this is probably the best place I've ever worked. So I don't think that's a reason, and colleagues tell me likewise. So I don't think there's any particular reason. And as I said earlier on, I think the rates that we're experiencing are normal, are healthy, if for want of a better word.
Steve, come back.
No, I'm fine with that, as long as there's there's no reasons why it spiked because of any particular issue. That was the only thing he'd asked that.
Right. I don't
My
believe
hand
there's
stuck up for some reason, I don't know why, but...
I don't believe there's any underlying cause, Councillor Evans.
No, he's not. He's happy, I think.
Yeah. Chair, we've got Councillor David Williams in the chamber.
I was about to say one of the Councillor Williamses. It's Councillor David Williams. Okay, David?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is helpful. I suppose one point of clarification, I'm presuming that when you're talking about numbers of staff leaving as a percentage of number employed, that includes people leaving on voluntary redundancies, etc., which is why presumably this figure for 2023 might be a little bit higher given what you just described earlier. So it's just clarification for that. Second part, and again, I think you've answered that, is high turnover seen as good or bad? I think, you've been relatively positive about it, which I think is good. And I think you've already covered some of the bits about how you're looking at sort of retaining skills, recruiting to skills in specific areas, such as planning or legal. And then I think it was also quite interesting seeing the numbers of application forms. I think, I'm sure you have this information, obviously it's quite helpful to know those posts that we have lots of applications for, those we have few applications for, so we know where we need to target. Their observations, and hopefully this is a useful sort of summary conclusion to draw this scrutiny to a close.
David, you got in. I was actually going to ask a question before you did on that. I was actually going to ask Jason Lee, what is healthy churn in an organisation the size of ours? Because Steve, we said something around the region. What was it? 16% on. It says on there, 16%. That's healthy churn, is it, within an organisation this size? Bearing in mind it's retirement, and it's also people going to other jobs. If it's a lot more than that, then you'd be worried, I presume.
Yes, I consider it to be healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other aspect to this is if we go down the line of doing apprenticeships and training and all the rest of it, I look at this list of other authorities in Wales. Do they all indulge in this as well? I presume they have to, because they're in the same game as we are. So people coming from local authorities in South East Wales and going to them, are their level of doing apprenticeships and training the same as ours? Because we're all in the same market, as it were. I just wonder whether they're doing the same thing and whether the Welsh Government is encouraging that. That's the question, you see, because it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, all of us will be doing something to a greater or lesser extent. Our strategies may be different. I think the strategy that we've adopted by focusing on retention and making sure that as many as possible of the more junior posts are converted into apprenticeship is probably unusual. But we felt that we weren't getting the traction that we needed by taking perhaps a more relaxed approach.
Which then leads me to... Go on.
But we'll all be we'll all have similar trends, workforce trends, and we'll all be looking at that type of intervention as a positive action.
Because that then leads me to the next thing, is Welsh Government's view on this, and whether they would endorse our view on it, because obviously there's a lot of policy at that level which feeds into what we do, and whether that's something that we can get help from, as it were.
Well, they impose a levy on us to fund, the workplace learning offer within the country. So I see that as an endorsement of what we're doing.
Good, thank you for that. And as David alluded to, thank you very much for yourself and Tina on this. And I think we draw this to attention. So, as I said, thank you very much for that. And you don't need to do the rest of it.
Just one second, Chair. Councillor Lucy Williams has a question, please.
Oh, so Lucy, do you want to come in?
Sorry, this is just a quickie final one.
No, please do.
It's just to understand our scrutiny role a bit better, because there's there's an annual development plan situated in this, isn't there? So would that annual plan come into scrutiny? That's just what I'm just trying to understand.
No, it wouldn't. It would. The delivery plan actually forms is the HR service plan.
Right.
So it's a document. It's an internal document that's monitored through management teams and leadership teams.
Right.
So it wouldn't come into this arena. No.
And I was going to offer up to you, is there anything else you feel that we haven't covered that we should have done, or anything else you'd like to make as a final statement, please?
No, they're happy with that. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, good. No, that's good. Them and Sue can make their exit if they like to. And thank you very much for what has been a very illustrative.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jason, Tina, and Sue. Brilliant. And thank you for your contribution. We're looking forward to making recommendations.
Okay, Chair, we're ready to carry on. Thank you.
They've gone. Right. Could you do me a favour, Rebecca, or Garen, whoever it is, could you list out the salient points you feel that we have? And then I'll then invite members to pitch in, as it were. There's some, I think, some quite good points that were brought up. You all right, David and Lucy in the chamber?
Thank you, Chair. So if I can just draw members' attention to the scrutiny activity for today's report.
Yeah,
so members of the Cross-Cutting Resources and Business Committee are invited to consider the information and data presented in Appendix 1 and make comments and recommendations to the Director, Corporate Services and Head of HR on potential improvement activity that has not already taken place, is already underway or is planned. So if I open it up to members, Chair, for them to put forward any potential recommendations they have, please.
I just suggested that you maybe have you made any observations before we start, so we can then latch on to them. It might be this one with this one.
I didn't pick up on any potential recommendations during course of discussions, Chair, but that's not to say that members haven't got their own.
All right, okay. We're doing that. Thank you.
Councillor Lucy Williams has indicated she'd like to put something
Okay,
forward.
please, Lucy.
I don't know if we can formulate this into a recommendation, which was partly the reason why I was asking about the annual development plan, is that there's some very useful what we're going to do things under each objective, but it would be useful to have some maybe clearer timescales with some of them. I was particularly looking at the mental health one because that's just quite such a big area. So I don't know if it could be worded in some way that those what are we going to do lists, perhaps particularly under mental health. Yes, just to have a little bit of understanding of the timescales and where, you know, what the priorities are on those lists, if that makes sense.
I think it does, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I've noted that one. Any other members have any? Councillor David.
Yeah, David Williams.
No, I think I noted the point about sort of capturing information, reporting it in terms of progress with apprenticeships. So I think that would be helpful as a recommendation. And I think it was acknowledged that that work is going ahead. It's not just starting now. So I think that longitudinal data and how we're progressing is helpful.
Thank you. So some people had slide 1, if you remember, workforce. There was quite a lot of discussion with Nathan Yeo and Steve. Could you allude to what you were doing there, Steve?
What I was trying to do is, with the workloads of the staff, by giving them more roles and responsibility, that it doesn't affect the overall county plan when there needs to be emphasis on particular fields of that plan. That was the one bit with that. But the only thing that I looked at, when they done the consultation, there was only 300 staff. Now, we got 4,000. That's not even 10%. You know, for consultation. There could be a lot of disgruntled staff there that haven't even been targeted. So
if I can just come in there quickly, sorry, Councillor Evans, if it's okay with you, if I note those concerns with regards to workloads in the comment section rather than
that's fine.
Because on that. And then in terms of the number, the 300 figure you're talking about, that was with regards to the development of the actual workforce strategy. So that's not to say that they're not engaging with more staff through different avenues or on different aspects, but at that time, that's the number. Like they said, they opened it up to all staff, and that was the number that came forward to work with them when developing that specific strategy.
But even then, Rebecca, if they're doing our strategy, there's still all them other people that are not involved in our strategy.
So if you just want to make a more general recommendation in terms of engagement with staff on aspects of these that they're taking forward, perhaps?
Yeah. That's what I'm looking at, because it's very limited who's been approached.
Right, thanks, Steve. Janet, you got something you want to put in?
Yeah, sorry, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Jones, you're breaking up again.
More or less following on what Steve was saying, but going on as an more observation, I suppose. We were concerned about the rapid digitalisation and how it would affect our residents. And bearing in mind the issues we've got with IT this afternoon, we think we really should be taken on board. I mean, it's more of an observation there.
Sorry, Councillor Jones, we didn't pick any of that up because you're breaking up and freezing. Was that concerns about engagement as well, was it?
Digitalisation.
The digital aspects. Yes. Okay, thank you,
If I may, I think it's just building on the points that Lucy made, which is in terms of some of the what are we going to do, as on page 32, it's actually a sort of, and how do you know that you're successful? You know, what's so some of that might be, you know, we've had good feedback that this training has worked well. Tina started to expand a little in terms of the hints and tips. So you want to see how those things progress. And so I think it would be, having heard of some of the initiatives, we'd like to know how those have been received and implemented.
Do you want to put a time limit on them, David? Any of them?
Well, I think it's probably useful to say the next 12 months.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And is that true of the what we're going to do with the mental health and sickness trends as well? Because that's slide 10. They might be the same as well. They were quite good, actually. I didn't mind those.
Yeah.
So the things like what they're going to do, I did ask him the question, have you done it? And nobody asked that. So assuming that you're all quite content with that.
The only thing I will say that, Stuart, is the time period. We never seen how long certain staff were off, and they returned to work, which I asked. You know, had it been on the fire service, they'd done that in proper data.
Yeah.
Well,
there was none of that there. So
ask for it then if you want.
Yeah, I recommend we see a bit more.
Recommendation.
Yeah. We need to recommend to see more of that data. So like saying they come back to work, but we got no time scale, no return to work thing. You know, there's none of that.
How they? Yeah. Are they phased in as well, Steve?
What's that?
Just to assure members, obviously, Jason did say that they do have that
return.
One at a time, please.
Sorry, just to say that obviously Jason did say that they do have that information sitting behind this, but I appreciate obviously members haven't had that today. So going forward, like you've said, in future reports where you're considering workforce data and trends, we'll ask that that is included for you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Thanks, Ben.
There was something I want to bring up about the average age of employees and what we were doing about apprenticeships. And also the people that are going. There's something in there. I don't know. Some people did ask questions around that. We've got an awful lot of older people going, and we're recruited. Did somebody ask on that?
Yeah.
I think there were lots of questions on that aspect, Chair.
Yes,
but I think obviously officers covered off, all the programmes and the interventions that they're putting in place. So
I think the worry we had, which I've always had, is about that the skills that we're losing and covering, and that was what I was asking a question on there. Yeah. Whether we can frame a question on that.
Councillor David Williams would like to come in, Chair.
Yeah, I think.
David.
I think this relates slightly to it, but I asked the question about, they said how many application forms, but what we didn't get a sense of was which jobs are hard to recruit to, which I think goes back to your point, Chair.
Yeah, David, that's right, that's the one.
So I think it is actually data on the jobs that we comfortably are able to get numbers to apply for and recruit to, which would suggest that we are attractive, but where we are struggling, where we're only getting one or two or none applying for posts, which would highlight perhaps where we've got gaps and how we might overcome some of those skill shortages.
Is that, David, is that confidential, that stuff, or is it something a general question we can ask?
I think Councillor Williams obviously is conscious that officers are monitoring that information and taking the appropriate actions. Is that right, Councillor Williams, based on their findings from that analysis?
Yes, I think so, but I think it's, again, without necessarily going into specifics, it's helpful to know, are we managing to get people in? We've got areas that we struggle to recruit. We know that we probably are. There was an example given, I think, around planning officers and the strategy that's being taken forward with that. I appreciate this is really perhaps an officer area, less a member area, but if we've got, I think there's the general question about information in the general sense about where we're struggling to recruit, where we're actually getting plenty of applications.
I mean, Dave, you are right, because Rebecca, I get a feel that round generic officers as opposed to specialist areas is the question. Is that correct, David?
Well, until you see the data, you don't know.
No, well, that's the point I'm making.
I
know in certain cases that is a truism, because planning officers is one of them, and possibly social workers might be another, where you've got a specific shortage.
But also, Stuart, somebody did bring the question, I think, with Rose, about people with disabilities and ethnic minorities.
That's
bring
a different question.
Sorry, Janet, bring it in with a recruitment. What are we doing to dissipate that to bring that more up front?
Well, that's another question you can throw in there.
The other one, Chair, was the upskilling. The answer was that managers are there to do the upskilling, but whether or not it's just a talent ID, looking at people who are talented rather than actually putting a programme of upskilling in so that we can backfill rather than go out to advert.
Sounds like Digger to me. Sorry. Okay, so there's another point there about convincing us that that's been done, isn't it?
Yes.
And if you're over 44, you've had it.
Well, that's the point.
Sorry, I've noted.
You're right there, Rebecca.
Yeah, I was just going to say I've noted down those specific recommendations and a couple of comments that I'll add in the comment section.
I did ask them several times about older workforce and people back again. That question about useful skills that they might have to use, and he didn't seem to be too keen on that.
No, I don't think he did mention that there was a pension re-employment policy in place, but that there obviously are restrictions around that. So I think he did cover that off in a response, Chair, so why that's not so straightforward.
So is everybody content now? David and Lucy and everybody else, you're all content with it now?
Yeah, Chair.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. So I will formulate those recommendations and send them round to the wider committee for your approval before they get sent on to the corporate director for response.
Anything else we've
missed? You're under 44, everyone.
Thank you, Steve. I tell you what would we do without Steve? Thank you for being positive, anyway. And thank you, everybody, for contributing. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca and Garrett and everybody else. And thank you for being philosophical about your power outs as well. Okay.